How's it going everyone, this is VerticDesigns here and this is lesson 2 on Photoshop. In the previous one we went over the user interface and some of the basic features to get ourselves comfortable with Photoshop. For this one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go a little bit more into detail, talk a little bit more about some other features. So what exactly does background mean? What this means is this image has been edited and the effects, layers and adjustments which was used to create this image have now all been flattened down into one. Next to the text you will have a little lock icon, and this pretty much indicates that some of your permissions to edit this image have been locked. We can still edit it if we go to the eraser tool, but we can't move it. The other lock is the full-on lock, which is not transparent, it is filled in. This one indicates that you have no permission whatsoever to edit this image. To get to the permissions for locking this layer, they will be underneath the effects. Now to unlock it, all you got to do is left click on the icon, or you can simply left click and drag this into the bin icon. What I didn't mention is that with layers, you have a search option right here where it says kind. This is pretty much to separate your layers from each other. And this is if you are editing a project which is much larger and has multiple layers. For example, if we have ourselves a text layer right here, and we want to filter this out, we can click on the text icon and this will filter out any other layers, so we can only see this one. With layers, if you're someone who struggles to see this, you can change the icon size by right clicking on here, and you can change the thumbnail size to medium. You can even go large, or you can set this to normal, which is small. The next thing that you can do with layers is you can set a color for each layer. If I get myself some other layers, each one you can give it its own individual color. For example, if we wanted this one to be red, we will set this one to red. We can set this one to blue and set this one to blue as well. You just right click on the eyeball symbol and select the color that you want. If you wanted to, you can apply it to all of them as well. If you click on the bottom one, hold shift and click on the top one and then right click and then give them all a red color. You can give them orange, whichever color you like. If you don't want it to have any color, you can just go back here and select no color. You've probably seen this icon symbol before, and what it means is you can preview what this would look like without that layer. So we can hide it, we could toggle it off and on. Rather than pressing delete, we can just click on the hide icon and that will hide the layer. If you save this project right now, it will be simple. There'll be nothing there. But if we unhide it, you will have this image. So in the previous video, I did go over the layer. So to create a new layer, go to here. And let's say we want to apply a brush effect right here. So if we select a red color and we cover the eyes, make sure you have a separate layer. You can click on the effect, click on the second one, and then just use the scroll wheel to go down, and this will skip through them. And you can preview each one as you go along. To delete this, you need to make sure that you are not selecting this. So if you click on here, click on the layer and press delete. And this is the first one you saw, which is like a chain icon. What this one's for is, let's say we had on layer 4 a shape. We hold shift and left click and drag this out. To create a duplication of this one, what we can do is we can hold alt and move this down and then go to the first tool. Move this over to the right side. If you wanted to, you can hold shift and that will keep it in the same position as that one. It won't make it go up or down. What you can do, instead of clicking control and selecting them separately like this, you can go over to the link icon. So you want to click on this one, hold control, click on that one, and then you want to click on this link icon. These two are now together, and when you press Ctrl T and you resize this, it will resize them together. As you can see, the ticks move together, and to apply them, all you gotta do is double left click. Moving on to the next one, the effects. This one pretty much brings you to the effects which you can apply. This is to do with the blending options. It's more of a shortcut to get to each one. So if you wanted to quickly get over to the stroke effect, you would go over there and get the stroke effect. Alright, so now that we've got to masks, this is something that took me quite a while to get used to. It wasn't because I found it difficult, but it was more because I prefer to do things with layers individually, and I am a more destructive person with my projects. What I mean by this is some people in Photoshop prefer to not actually destruct this image. They want to keep it in its original condition, and this is what masks are usually used for. For example, if we wanted to remove this background from this image and we didn't want it to be completely cut out, what we can do is we can create ourselves a mask, and that will pretty much hide the actual background rather than cutting it out. To create yourself a mask, all you got to do is go down to this icon right here, click on it, make sure you are selecting the layer. You can switch between the actual mask and layer by left click on them, and this will let you switch over from one to another. The icon between that, which is a chain, this links them up together. If this was unticked, if you left click on it and it wasn't there, it wouldn't apply. You won't be able to do anything. You can't actually edit it. So you must make sure that you left click on here and it is linked together with the layer and the mask. The two different colors it works with is a simple black and white. The colors between this are used to either subtract or add on to it. So if you go down here to the colors, get yourself a black and white. If you click on this one, it will reset it. Get yourself the brush tool and you can start brushing this area right here. And as you can see, it's being taken away. And like I mentioned before, the great thing about masks is that it won't actually cut this out. Disable a mask by simply holding Shift and clicking on here, and that will disable the mask. You can do it manually by right clicking and disable mask, or use the shortcut where it's holding Shift and clicking on it. Since we cut this area out, we can fill this back in using the opposite color. We use a shortcut, which is the square bracket and the N square bracket on your keyboard. This will make it larger or smaller. You can even hold in Alt and use the right side of the mouse. Right click, and you want to hold Alt and also drag left or right. If you wanted to give it hardness, you would go down or you would go up. Making sure that we've selected a white color, and then we just fill this back in. Another thing that you should remember about a mask is that you can preview this by holding Alt and clicking on the area right here, and this will preview it on its own without any layer behind it. So if we apply it here and then we hold Alt and click on it again, you'll see it's applied, but we can see it in a standalone view. Moving on to another useful shortcut to remember is if you hold Control and you click on this area right here, it will select the actual stroke that you created. To deselect this, all you gotta do is press Control and D, and that will deselect it. And like I mentioned before, it's not destructive, so our image is completely fine. We didn't destroy anything, we just hidden the parts that we didn't want to see. The very last thing that you should know about a mask, and this is really important, is you can invert your image by pressing Control and I, and that will invert it. So if we wanted to, we can now go over to the white color and we can make this visible, and we are pretty much working backwards. Rather than taking it away, we are now adding it to the layer. You can create yourself some of the either adjustments right here, or you can create yourself some solid, gradient, or pattern. You can even invert the image. You can posterize, threshold, gradient map, and selective color. I'm going to give you an example of a solid color. So if you click on this one, you can select any color that you want. And the great thing about this one, rather than going to a new layer and applying a color, is that compared to the other one, is this one you can easily change the color if you wanted to. Let's say you changed your mind, you can click on here, double left click, and you could change it instantly. With an actual layer on its own, you would have to go to the bucket tool and get yourself another color and then apply it onto this one. So this one is a lot quicker to do. If you wanted these two to not be applied, you can unlink them and now you won't be able to really edit them. The other one, a gradient, this is pretty much to give you this cool effect where it starts from a solid color and slowly fades out. If you wanted to, you could change the style, you can change the angle, the scale, and the actual gradient, which is right here. And the very last one, this is a pattern. If you wanted to, you can create a pattern layer. This is a shortcut, makes it a lot quicker to get to. Next to that one is folders. This one is another great feature in Photoshop. If we create ourselves multiple layers, we want to have layer 2 and layer 3 into a group. We can click on the bottom one, hold shift, and then click on the top one, and then we can drag these down to the group icon. And now these two are together. You can apply effects to group 1 and it will apply it to layer 3 and layer 2. You can even convert this into a smart object by right clicking on it. I'm going to convert smart object and now it will be more of a layer. You can still edit this if you right click on it and you go to edit contents. This will open up a separate tab where you can then open up the folder once again and edit the layers individually. Now I'm going to close this down and I'm not going to save it. In this option right here where it says channels, if you wanted to, you can separate each and every one. So for example, if we don't want the full colors, we can go over to the red. This will remove the red from this image. If we go down to green, it will remove the green. And if we click on blue, this will now be without any color. A similar thing applies to paths. I will be making a separate video on this one because this one is a little bit more complicated and it is something that you might not exactly use. Okay, so that was quite a lot of talking. Let's move on to the tools and start to actually use some of them just to quickly get a introduction to what they are, what they do, and to make it, a little bit easier for you to understand what they are. Before we actually start, there's a few things that you should know, and that is, the first thing is, if you see this icon at the bottom right here with a little arrow pointing down, it is like a corner of the icon. This basically means that it is together in a group with some other options. If we right click, it will give us the other tool, which is grouped together with this one, and the other one will do a similar sort of task to this one. For example, if we go over to the selection, we will get all the other selection options. For example, you can use a rectangle or you can go for a circular shape rather than using this one, and so on. Same thing applies for the other ones. Now, if you wanted to customize this, all you got to do is go down here to 3 dots, which is underneath the zoom tool. If you right click on it, go to edit toolbar, and in here you can pretty much customize the toolbar itself. So if you wanted to add on some extra tools, or if you wanted to take some away, you can even mix and match these to be in different groups. It is all customizable and however you like it to be. Now, personally, I don't really customize this. I leave it as default because I prefer things to be default and the way they are normally. The first tool is to move the layer. Now, this one you will pretty much use all the time because you want to use it to move your layers around, move your objects, anything you have on the screen. The second option is the selection tool. Now, this one is absolutely amazing. It is great. If we use the rectangular one, we select our image. One thing to keep in mind with the selection tool is if you hold shift and drag it out, it will give you a completely square and equal box. With the selection, we can now press Ctrl and J, and this will just pretty much duplicate our selection, and this will make it pop out from the background. So as you can see, we have this area right here, which can be used for a profile icon. Now I'm going to press Ctrl, Alt and Z to undo. And to deselect this, all you got to do is press Ctrl and D, or if you're on a Mac, it should be Command and D. The other thing that you should remember is these options at the top here. The first one will allow you to create a brand new selection. The second one will allow you to add on to the one that you have. So if you have a rectangular shape here and you wanted to add onto it, you would select this one and get yourself a more bigger shape by adding on to it. The other one is to take it away, so it's the opposite effect. If you want to subtract, you would use this one for the selection. And the very last one is a custom selection inside of this one. So if we only wanted to select the middle area, we would select this area here and it will remove anything around it. The next tool on the list, which is the third tool down, this is pretty much the lasso tool. This one is split into three. You have three different types. The first one is a free-handed lasso tool. So you can create yourself a selection around the person. And there you go, you have a rough selection. And pretty much the other ones do the same task but in a different way. So the polygonal one will do it in straight lines. Magnetic lasso tool will do it in dots, where it'll connect it up and the computer will plot it down for you. And the magic wand is the easiest tool to use because all you do is select it and left click and it will try its best to pick up a certain color and select the part that you clicked on. The quick selection tool will be a lot better option for this sort of image. As you can see, it did a much better job than the one before, because this one will automatically detect where the outline is and it will stop right there. So as you can see, it stopped on the edge of this. And if we wanted to, we can create ourselves a mask. And as you can see, this is the one problem you will have with a mask. And like I said before, all you got to do is press Ctrl and I, and that will invert it. It'll swap it over with the colors. The next option underneath that is the crop tool. You would use this option right here. So drag the corners out. And once you're happy with the changes, you double left click on the area right here. And now it will completely resize the dimensions of your project. You can pretty much get yourself some sample colors. For example, if we wanted to get the color of the background, if we wanted to copy it, we would select this tool right here and press on the background. If you left click, it will now pick up this color. So as you can see, this is the color which is being used for the background. Now, a cool thing about this option is that there is a shortcut for it. So all you got to do is hold Alt and it'll swap over to the sample tool. Next tool is the healing brush tool. Now, what this is used for is pretty much to fix up your image by using certain selections. For example, if we select the spot healing tool, what it'll do is it will pick up a texture nearby to repair the one that isn't looking the same. So as you can see, what we did there is we picked up the other skin texture which was nearby to replace the shine which was on the forehead. The only problem with this one is sometimes it can pick up the wrong textures. So for example, if we do it a bit closer to here, you'll see it's picked up some of the textures from down here. If you're new to the brush tool and you've never used it before, you have all the options up here. Now these are the basic options for your brush. So for example, you can get yourself a full-on circle, which will pretty much be 100% hardness. We paint onto here, you will see the edges are hardened. Now if we swap it over to the soft brush or the softness to 0, this will pretty much give you this soft effect where the edges are really smooth. Now, if you wanted more options for this one, you can click on this one, and this will give you a lot more options, a lot more textures. You can even control the noise, you can control the build-up. You pretty much have more options in here. You can also get a preview down here. So if we go through these ones, you get yourself a preview. The clone stamp tool. This one, as you would guess, is to clone certain textures and pixels. So if we wanted to get ourselves a copy of this eye right here, we would hold Alt, click on it, and then we would now have a copy of it. The option underneath that is to clone yourself a pattern. So if you wanted to, you can get yourself a copy of it and put it wherever you want. So for the next tool, what we've done is we've switched over to a completely new background to give us a much better example of what it is, and we get a better idea of how to actually use it. This one will work with the history, so the things that you've done before, it will allow you to apply it onto your image. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to Window and make sure that you have the history panel enabled. The first one is the actual layer, and this is the background, and the one underneath that is the action which you took to get to it. You want to go to Filter, go down to Blur, and go to Gaussian Blur. Press OK, and now you need to make sure that you click on the snapshot button. If you don't do this, then this step won't really apply. And what we're basically doing is we are taking a screenshot of the effect which we applied. So if you double left click on this and rename it to blur, you will now have the original image with the image which has a filter. Once again, go to this one, go to filter, and this time we are going to apply a filter effect. So go to filter gallery, get yourself the second one or whichever one you would like in here. And now that you have this one, once again, press the screenshot button. And now what you want to do is you want to click on the first one again, the original image, and you want to get yourself a new layer. The way that this tool works is, as you can see, the icon is set on the first one. And what this means is whichever one it lands on is the one that it will apply. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to first of all select the history brush. And let's say we want to apply a blur effect. What we can do here is we can switch over to the blur view and we can create ourselves a new layer. Since we're working backwards, the brush must be on the first one, the original image, and then you can pretty much paint on to here. And basically what we did right here is we just painted on the original image onto the blurred one. We can once again swap over to the poster one if we wanted to. So for example, we can go over to this one, we can create ourselves a new layer, and we can, let's say, apply the original one onto this one by making sure you are selecting this one and paint yourself wherever you want. If you wanted to, you can even apply both of them at the same time. So for example, we can also apply the blur by swapping over to here and blurring out this area here. And as you can see, it's blurring the part that I just brushed on. And that is how you use the history brush tool. Moving on to the next tool, we get to the bucket tool. This one is all about filling in certain selections. So for example, we can go over to the selection tool. We can select this area right here. Make sure you are on the add button. So add selection and select this area right here. We're going to change the sky color to something else. Go over to the bucket tool, create yourself a new layer, and you want to pick a different color. So let's go with like a unusual color. Let's go for red sky. You want to left click in this area. Now that you've applied it, you can press Ctrl D to deselect, and you can pretty much give it an effect by going to where it says normal and just scroll through these ones until you are happy with one effect. This one seems okay, but I quite like overlay. The next two tools, I personally like to think these two are together because it is almost like a group. Now they are separated into two different categories. You have the first one, which has the blur tool, sharpen tool, and smudge tool. The second one has similar tools. It will have dodge tool, burn tool, and sponge tool. And these tools are mainly for retouching the image. If we hold Alt on our keyboard and use the scroll wheel to go up, to zoom in. Let's say we wanted to blur out this object right here. We can click on this one and you can start applying it, and as you can see, it is slowly getting more blurry. The more you apply it and the more you hold it in. The other options, for example, the sharpen tool, opposite effect, it will sharpen this area right here. As you can see, it's getting a lot sharper. The smudge tool, this one is quite strange. You can use it as a tool where you can smudge your object. Underneath that, you get the dodge tool. This will simply apply a dodge effect to your image. The burn tool, this one I personally like because you can make areas much darker. So if we wanted to, we can make this part of the grass much darker, as you can see. The sponge tool, the way I like to see this one is it takes away color. So if we see the color here and we want it to be more drained, we would use the sponge tool to drain the colors out of this bush. As you can see, it's slowly losing color. The next tool down, we have the pen tool. This personally is the best tool in Photoshop for any selection that you wanted to do. To use this tool, all you got to know is, first of all, the way that this works is with dots. So if you left click, it'll create you the first point. You then create the second point, the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Now, once it changes to a circle, you can pretty much connect them all back up. To turn this into an actual selection, we go up here to mask and selection and have it on 0 pixels. This is for the feather radius. We don't want any feather with our image, and you can see now it's made our selection. This tool requires a lot more explanation, so if you'd like to see a full-on video on how to use it, I have a video on my channel. You can always watch that, and that will help you out a lot more. The text tool. This one, as you would guess, it is to create yourself a text, so we can write in here. You can change the font by highlighting this and going up here. Change the font to something else that you would like. If you want more options for your text, you can go onto this side and you have the character and the paragraph. If you don't have these two options, you can go to window and you can find them usually in here, which is right here, paragraph, and the other one should be character right here. The path selection tool is normally used for when you have a certain selection. What you can do with this tool right here is you have two different options. The path selection will allow you to completely move this whole path. The other option is the direct selection, and what this one will do is it will allow you to edit each and every point once again. If we wanted to edit this point right here, we would select it by left click and dragging this out, and we can now edit this area right here. So as long as you are left clicking and dragging to select the actual point itself, you can remove it where you would like it to be. The shape tool is to create yourself any shape that you wanted to. So if we wanted to get ourselves a rectangular shape, we would go in here, select this one, and left click and drag it out to get ourselves a shape. The hand tool is all about allowing you to move around the image. We can move around by using the hand tool. Now, a cool thing about this is the shortcut for it is if you are selecting another tool, for example, this one right here, you can hold spacebar and that will allow you to swap over to the hand tool a lot easier. And finally, we get to the very last one, which is the zoom tool. As you would guess, the zoom tool will allow you to zoom into your image. Now, I've already showed you the shortcut for it, but there is another way you can do it as well. So the other way is to actually select it. You can select areas where you want it to zoom in, or you can just click on the screen and that will zoom it in. To do the opposite, you can hold Alt and that will swap it over to take away. You can right click on the screen and select these options. So if you want it to fit to screen or zoom out. The shortcut for this one is if you're selecting another tool and want to quickly switch to the zoom tool, you can press Ctrl and space and that will give you the zoom tool. So it doesn't really matter which order you do it in. You can press space first and then Alt and zoom out. And that is pretty much all the tools. These are the default tools which you get with Photoshop. There is a lot more, but that will be for a separate video.